I'm back on my home screen for part 3. And part 3 is all about text and text effects. Now, as you start to build the number of your projects, or as Canva labels it, recent designs, you'll notice that on the left side, you'll also have a listing of your recent designs. And this comes in handy when you're toggling back and forth between what you're currently working on and with the quick access menu. So let's take a look at how that works. This is the design that I was working on previously. I'm going to open this design, but right now I'm in preview mode. And I can still see part of the home screen in my left panel. To completely open up this design, I can just click on this arrow in a box, and that will open up this design in a new window. Now I can toggle back and forth between my current design and the home page by clicking on these 3 lines right here. That will open up my part of my home screen and get me access to projects, templates, brand, and apps. But that's no different than what's in here already. But what I will have also is a shortcut to my most recent designs. And these are also available under projects. To close this window, just click the X here, and that will bring you back to your workspace. I'm going to close this, and I'll close this tab as well. And I'll go back to my home screen. I'm going to now create a custom workspace. So I'll just come into custom, and I want a design that's 8.5 by 11. So I've clicked that option because it was there as one of the sizes that I had previously worked on recently. I'm going to place some text on my workspace. So I'll go over to the text tab and click on it. Now, the first thing you're going to notice that at the top, there is this search bar. And like any of the other tabs, it's going to have a search bar where you can search for certain things. In this case, this area is here for you to search for fonts and font combinations. So we could very well search in here for a specific font. Right underneath this search bar is a purple box that says add a text box. Now, if you want to quickly add a text box onto your workspace, just click on this purple box, and that will place text on your workspace. Now, to quickly resize that text, you can just grab it by the handle and resize it like that. And at some point, you'll get both circles on the end where you can either resize it from one end or the other. Now, these little tabs in the middle just make your text box wider, but they don't make it taller. In order to make your font taller, you really have to choose a different font, a font that is going to be like taller in nature. So we cannot, in Canva, we cannot make text taller. We can make it bigger, but it would be bigger and taller. I hope that makes sense. Now, if we go back to the left panel, right underneath that purple text box is going to be our brand kit. Now, this is a Canva Pro feature. So unless you have Canva Pro, you won't be able to modify this area. But let's take a little look at how this brand kit area would work. So I have a couple of brand kits set up. So if I toggle that down arrow, I'm going to get all of my brand kits coming up so that I can navigate between the different brand kits that I want. And if I wanted to choose and work with a different brand kit, I could just click it and that would go to that brand kit. I'm currently using this one, so I'm just going to stick with this one right here. By the way, we'll get more into brand kit in a totally different video that's not associated with this series. Now, if we go into edit, what we'll see is our brand kit and what our brand kit is comprised of. So as part of our brand kit, we have logos, and we can quickly add new logos for our brand kit. Underneath, we have colors that are associated with our brand kit. And again, we can quickly add more colors. And then under fonts, we have all the fonts that are associated with our brand kit. So for example, for titles, I have associated the Luckiest Guy as my font that I want to use for a text that is quote and unquote a title. And you can choose the font by clicking the font drop down. You can choose what text style that's going to be defaulted on. And you can also choose the font size, whether you want it bold or italics. Now for subtitle, I also have a font and size associated with that. I have a text associated with heading, subheading, section, body, quote, and caption. Now, if I did not have a font associated with that, then this is what it would look like. So it would just look like very plain and light. And then I could just come in here and click the edit button, and I could choose whatever font I wanted to use with quote. And when I was done choosing, I could press the checkmark button to set it in place. Now, as part of the brand kit, we also have some other options over here that we can set with our brand. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a Canva Pro feature, so you may see the brand kit here, and it will have defaulted fonts already associated with it, but you won't be able to change those font selections unless you have Canva Pro. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to delete this text box by coming up to the floating menu and just pressing that garbage can. Let's go back to this left panel. Now, although you cannot change any of the default font styles that are associated with these types of text styles, we can always quickly use them to place text on our workspace. So as you can see, I clicked on it and I placed it on my workspace. And I can also change this text to any font that I want to use. Now, below the brand kit are my recently used font combinations. And below that are font combinations. Now, what are font combinations? Font combinations are just text styles that have been paired together. Different font combinations, different sizes, and different effects that have been paired together and are ready for you to use in any of your designs. And you can quickly add any of these types of font styles to your workspace by just clicking on them and adding them to your design. And these are great, especially if pairing fonts is not your thing. You can easily just grab a font and place it on your workspace. To change the text in the text box, just click in there and you can change it to whatever text you want. I'll change this text to Canada. Now, when you're placing text on your workspace from the font combinations, note that those text boxes might be grouped together. You know that they're grouped together when you click one and then there is a dotted line around the other text box. We can easily ungroup them by just clicking ungroup. And then you can go in there and you can just move them around freely. To group them again, just select both of them and select the group option. Now, if you're searching for a specific type of font, just like in other sections, you can easily search for a font type or style in the search box. So let's say, for example, I was looking for a script font. I could type in the search bar script and then press enter, and it will return all the options for script fonts. And it will tell you which fonts are pro fonts and which fonts are free fonts. Now, why is that important? It's important because if you are creating Canva templates to sell, your buyers will not be able to download any templates with these pro fonts unless they have Canva Pro themselves. Okay, so just take a note of that. Now, when I select any of these text options, it will place a text box on my workspace with that font. So I've selected Kaushman script, and there it is right there. Now, it is a little bit small, and like elements, to make text boxes larger, just grab them by the corner and drag them up or down. And that will make that text box larger. Now, there are also handles on the side. They will crop that text box, essentially making any text wrap around to the next line. Now, as you saw there, to grab elements on your workspace, you can click on your workspace and drag to select multiple elements. Release the mouse button, and then that will select everything that you have moved your mouse over. You can then move it up or down, right, left, or what have you. Let's take a look at the floating toolbar. I'm going to close the side panel by clicking the X. So let's take a closer look at the floating toolbar. I'm going to click on a space on my page to release those items that I had selected before. I'm going to click on the Canada text box. The first option that I have is Magic Write. Now, Magic Write is an AI generated option from within Canva that helps you write text and paragraphs. I'm going to create a new page by clicking this plus sign. And I'm going to go back up to the top. I'll grab my Canada, I'll press Control C, and then I'll paste it on this new page. Let's go over to Magic Write. Now in Magic Write, we have a whole bunch of options. We can ask Magic Write to continue writing. We can ask it to shorten a paragraph. We can ask it to rewrite a paragraph. We can ask it to make a paragraph more fun. We can ask it to make a paragraph more formal. We can ask it to sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust. We can also ask it to change its voice. And adding a voice is a pro feature. Now what this does is it trains Canva to rewrite paragraphs in your voice or the way you write. And again, that is a pro feature. Canva can also fix spelling, and you can also create a custom prompt. For example, if you have a paragraph with a bunch of items, you can ask Canva to turn that paragraph into a list of items. Let's try some of these out. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to add another text box. So I'll come here to my text tab and I'm just going to add some body. I'm going to make this a little bit larger by dragging those corners. And I'm just going to place it here just so that we can see what that is. Now in here, I'm going to type, I live in Canada, specifically in Ontario. Canada has long winters and short summers. Now before I go back to Magic Write, I'm just going to reformat this paragraph so that we can get more on the page. So I will decrease the font by coming into this panel and just resizing it to a 21 font. I'll click this paragraph and I'll select Magic Write. And now I'm going to ask it to continue writing. So it's generated this text for me here. Now I can take a copy of this text to place it somewhere in my document, or I can add this text below my first paragraph. Or I can just tell Canva to replace this text with what it's written over here. I'm going to select to add it below. So here it is here. Now it's unformatted, so I'll just crop that a little bit. And I will update the font to 21 like in the first paragraph. Since I have this text box selected, let's try one more of Magic Write's feature. So there was an option here to make it more fun. So let's see what that looks like. So as you can see, it's being a little bit more humorous. and creative in changing the paragraph that was there previously. So now it reads, "In the winter, nature hits the snooze button and wakes up in a frosty fairy tale." And it goes on and on and on. And again, you can copy that paragraph to place it somewhere else in your design. You can add it below the current paragraph, or you can replace this paragraph with this new text. I'm going to add it below. I'm just going to add a new page, and I'm going to move that text on that new page. I'll go back up to the top to page 1. And that is Magic Write. When you get a chance, try Magic Write out for yourself. Try each of these different prompts and try creating your own custom prompt. Next to Magic Write is a font panel. So it's similar to the text tab here. Placing it on the floating toolbar makes it more accessible. Now, what happens when you click on this font icon? It opens up a panel on your right. So we have panels opening up on our left. We have panels opening up on our right. You'll also notice that the font in this area is the font that you're currently using for the text that you have selected. And when we look over to our right panel, that text is also checked off, signifying that that's the font that you're using for the text that you have selected. And like this area here where you're able to search in the search bar, you're also able to search in this area as well. And like the other search bars, there are filters that you can select that let you filter through the fonts if needed. To go back, just press the X button. I'm going to go back to the font panel. And I'm just going to press the back arrow to go back to the font list. You're going to notice underneath the search bar that there are tags for specific types of text styles and fonts. And you can quickly select these and get samples of different styles of text. I selected corporate, and it's displaying corporate type fonts. To go back, just press that arrow, and then you can select something else to return the different types of handwriting text. Now at the top, you're going to notice that there's an area that says document fonts. These are the fonts that you're using in your document. And that is very handy because if you need to use one of those fonts again, they're right in your right panel for quick access. Below here, you're going to find your recently used fonts. And they can be from previous designs that you have created. Below that are your brand fonts, and this is my brand. And if you have more than one brand kit set up, you can just click on that arrow and select the different brand kit that you want to use with this design. Below the brand kit fonts, you'll find fonts that you have uploaded into Canva. And new down here is an area where you can actually upload fonts. Now, I do believe that uploading a font is a pro feature. Anything that has the crown is a pro feature. So unfortunately, if you don't have Canva Pro, you will not be able to upload fonts. Below the uploaded fonts are popular fonts, and they will be listed here. And the list goes on and on and on. There are thousands of different fonts available. And if you're searching for a specific font name, you can also just come up in here and type it in here, and it will show you whether it is available in Canva or not. I'm going to close the font panel. Let's go back to the floating toolbar. Next to font is the font size. Now you can resize the font by clicking on these corners, or you can come into this font size tab and select the size that you want. So if you wanted the font to be 96 pixels, the size is in pixels. Please note that. You can just come in here and scroll down to the font size and select it. And you'll know it's selected because there'll be a check mark next to it. You can also decrease by selecting the minus, or you can increase by selecting the plus. Next to the font size is text color. When you click on text color, you're going to get a panel opening up on the left with different options. Now these are default colors. These are my brand kit colors, and these are the colors in the document. Now, if none of these colors suit your preference, you can always add a new color by clicking on that color chooser and customizing the color by moving this slider. Or if you have the hex code, you can paste it in here. Or you can use the eyedropper to choose a color that's on your workspace. So if I move the eyedropper picker over to this pink text, it will copy that pink color and apply it to my Canada text. I'm going to press the undo button to undo that. Now, before we close this side panel, note also on the bottom that there is the option to change everything that is black to red. So if you're changing colors, you can change all of the colors in your design at once. So if I click change all, that will change all of the text that was black to red. I'll click the undo button again. And now I'm just going to close that right panel. I'm going to go into Elements now, and I'm going to place a photo on my workspace. So I'll just scroll down and I'll go into See All. It's going to be any photo. So I'll click this photo right here, and I'll minimize this and just place it right up here. This photo is just here purely for demonstrative purposes. I'm going to click this text box, the Canada text box, and I'm going to go back into text color. And the panel on our right side is going to open up again. This is where we previously changed the color of our Canada text. And you're going to notice that as we scroll down, Canva is now picking up the colors that were in the photo up here in the top left corner. And we can easily coordinate the colors from that photo with changing colors of the text on our design. So we can very easily change the color to match the photo if we wanted to. I'm going to close this panel on the right side, and I'll press the undo button to set the Canada back to red text. Now, next to the text color, there is bold, italics, and underline. Now, these options will not be available for all fonts. So if you see that they are grayed out, that means it's just not available for that font. If I click on this text box, you'll notice that the bold and italics are not available. The underline does what it says it does. It underlines. And if I were to select italics, that's what it would look like. Next to italics is a button that allows you to change the text default to either uppercase or lowercase. So if I wanted this whole word to be in uppercase, I could just toggle that button and it would change all of the letters to uppercase. And you can toggle it on and off. The next button is alignment. Now for alignment, we're going to move over to the second page. Now you'll remember that I had two text boxes here. I'm going to take the first text box, and you'll see by the alignment that that text box is center aligned. If I click on the text box again, it will change the alignment to left aligned. Now if I change it again, it will change it to justified. What's justified? Justified is when text is lined up on both the left side and the right side. Now you won't be able to see this with just one sentence. Let's justify this paragraph so that you can get a better idea of what that looks like. So you'll see that the text is lined up on the left here and also on the right by inserting spaces in between various words to stretch that sentence out. Now, if I go back to alignment and select it again, it's going to change the alignment back to left aligned. Let's crop this text box and let's move this one down a little bit. Now I'm going to insert a paragraph in there to move to the next option. So next to alignment is list. And with list, we have the option to create a bulleted list or a numbered list. So let's see what that looks like when we select a bulleted list. So you'll see every time there is a paragraph, there's a bullet. Let's select it again to see what a numbered list looks like. So now you see a 1, there's a 2, and there is a 3. I'm going to go back up to my first page for the next icon. The next icon is spacing. I'm going to select the Canada, and I'll just move it up a little bit. I'll go back to spacing, and we'll notice that there'll be a couple of options here. My first option is letter spacing. And letter spacing is like kerning. So as you move the slider up, that increases the spacing in between the letters. As I move it down, it decreases the spacing. Now you can also come into this box and key in a specific number as well. I'm going to click on this text box here to show you what the line spacing option does. Now, line spacing will tighten up the spacing between two sentences. So if I toggle the spacing up, it will increase the spacing. If I toggle it down, it will decrease the spacing. Now, the anchor text box, I believe, works for tables. I don't think that it does anything for simple text, but I could be wrong. I'll select the Couchman script again and go over to the next option. The next option is transparency. And what that does is it will increase or decrease the opacity of an element, whether it's text or a photo or a graphic. Now, I should mention that if you see these options available on other elements like images or graphics, they will do similar things. Getting back to transparency and changing the opacity of text, when you toggle it down, it makes the text box more transparent. And you can actually make that text box disappear. And again, you can also key in a specific number right in the box. Now, next to transparency is effects. We'll get into effects and animating text in the next session. So I'm going to skip over these two and move over to position. I'm going to click on Canada, and I'm going to click on the position button. With position, we have two options. You're going to get the side panel opening up again, and you'll have the option to go to Arrange or the option to go to Layers. We're going to focus on layers. Navigating to different positions in layers is very, very important. If you don't understand how to get to a certain element on your workspace, when you have elements one on top of another, you're going to get very, very frustrated. From my Position Layers tab, I can see that I have 3 elements on my workspace. I can also see that I have an element that's grouped together. That's what that little icon means. So this element here is comprised of multiple elements. And right now, it's very difficult for me to even get to that Canada. It's very frustrating. How do I get to that Canva? Well, if I go to Position and my Layers tab, and I scroll down to Canada, I have a couple of options. I have that selected. So with that selected, I can go to, for example, the text color, and I can change the text color to blue. Or I can go back to Position and Layers. I can select that element, and then I can come back here and move it. Now I'm going to press the undo button and put it back underneath. The other option I have is to take that Canada element and drag it and move it in that Position and Layers panel all the way up to the top. And now that element is sitting right on top, easy peasy for me to get to. So understanding position and layers will simply make your life so much easier using Canva. Now I'm going to create another page. So I'm going to close this for now, and I'll just scroll down, and I'm going to add a blank page. I'm now going to add guides to this page. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Settings, and I'm going to add guides. Now I'm going to add a 3x3 grid, and I'm going to say Add Guides. Now I'm going to go over to my Text tab, and I'm going to add a heading. And in this heading, I'm going to write the word 1. I'm going to take this word and I'm going to bring it up here. And I'm going to try and place it in the middle of this square. I'm going to duplicate this text by clicking on the duplicate button there. And I'm going to bring it over to the next cell. Now take note of that dotted line and also that vertical line that's appearing. That's telling me that the text box in that middle square is not only horizontally aligned with my first word, but it's also aligned vertically on the page. I'm going to click in there and change that to 2. I'm going to duplicate this text again and bring it over here. Now you'll see that there'll be some numbers coming up, 1.771. That is telling me that the numbers are spaced perfectly by 1.771 pixels. So I know that they are evenly spaced out in between. I'll click in there and I will change it to 3. And I'll just move it again just to see if I can get it evenly spaced. And I'll leave it like that for now. I'm going to grab these 3 text boxes and I'm going to duplicate them. And I'm going to bring them down here. And you'll notice the lines and the guides helping me to align them with the numbers or text boxes up top. I'll duplicate them again, and Canva is automatically placing them evenly spaced in between the other 2 lines of text. So if I go to move them, Canva is going to tell me, oh, they're already evenly spaced. So I'll just leave that there. Let's talk a little bit about grouping elements. Now I'm going to close my side panel here. And you'll notice that I have selected currently 3 text elements. On the floating toolbar just above, we have the option to group elements. Now I'm not going to group these elements just yet. I'm going to click on the gray space to release those 3 text elements. I'm going to remove the guides. So I'll go to File, I'll go to Settings, and I'll clear the guides. I'm now going to select all of the text boxes by dragging my mouse button while I have it clicked and releasing. And again, we see that floating menu with that group option. I'm going to select Group. Now, what does group do? Well, as you guessed it, it's grouping or sticking together all of these elements that I had selected in my previous step. Now you'll notice that this group of elements has this purple box around it, kind of like an image or a text box or a shape. And you guessed it, just like those types of elements, we can grab this group and we can resize everything, keeping everything in proportion. Now this is great if you want to select multiple items at one time, or if you want to move items together. One great way to do that is to group elements. So I'm just going to resize this just a bit, like that. I'm going to ungroup these elements now. And I'll just click on the gray space. For now, this is the first part of adding text to our workspace. How to place text on a workspace and how to change the font, the size, the text color, using different types of text styles like bold, italic, and underline, toggling between uppercase and lowercase, alignment, lists, spacing, and transparency. In the next session, we're going to overview the rest of the toolbar, and we'll also overview how to use Canva's standard text effects.